Hey guys, just before this video starts, I do want to give a spoiler warning for this movie. I try my best not to do any spoilers for this movie because it's supposed to be a pre-movie watch review of it. But I will give this warning out now because there might be some small spoilers in it. I apologize if there is. I'm just warning you now. There isn't anything major, but I am warning you this now. So, be mindful. Be mindful.
What's up, guys? Today, in this video, we will be talking about not just one movie, not two movies, not even three movies, four movies. Today, we are going to be talking about the different Spider-Man movies. Not like the series of movies, but actually the different Spider-Man, like the Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, and even the animated Miles Morales movie, Spider-Verse. And today, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be comparing different factors of each movie, like each Spider-Man, each Peter Parker, villains, leading female actresses. I'm going to be comparing which one I think is the best, and talking about each one. So let's get into it. First one, Spider-Man. Now, as many of you don't know, I'm a huge Spider-Man fanatic. He's my favorite superhero of all time, so I'm going to be really detailed about these Spider-Man. Start off with Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is like an instant classic for me. It's like, it brings you back to the comic books. It literally feels like a live-action comic book for me. He's also the only Spider-Man out of all three of the live-action Spider-Man where all his powers are organic, and you really see all of his powers come to life. You really see him use the spider webs, the spider sense, the wall crawling, the super strength, everything. You see it all throughout the series, which kind of makes it a really strong case for Tobey. For my next one, Andrew Garfield. I'm gonna be honest here, folks. This Amazing Spider-Man movies were really rough. There wasn't many of it that really helped it a lot. He's just a really bad Spider-Man. He's the only one out of all the Spider-Man who let his female actress die, as you saw at the end of the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Even if you even watch the movie, which I don't even recommend doing. Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Now, Tom's in an interesting situation where he is mentored by Tony Stark, which means he gets all the monies. He gets all the high-tech stuff. So, of course, he is the most high-tech Spider-Man out of them all. With this Peter Parker having access to Tony Stark's fortune, he has a ton of suits that make him stronger, like the Iron Spider, the Stealth suit, the original one that you see in the Homecoming, and then the black suit upgrade that he makes for himself in Far From Home. And lastly, Miles Morales. Miles Spider-Man is by far the strongest one because it has the most powers. He can shoot electricity through his hands, electrical discharge. He can spiderweb with the cutlets just like the others. And he can even turn invisible. And plus, he can also wall crawl, and he has spider sense. So by far, he is the strongest Spider-Man out of them all. And I'm going to give this one to Miles Morales because he is by far the strongest and also kind of the coolest one out of them all. Next, Peter Parker. Which of the Peter Parkers is my favorite? Now I'm going to describe each of these Spider-Man by like their personality, kind of simplify it. And with Tobey Maguire, he's by far the nerdiest Spider-Man. Like you could see in the first one, he's just such a dork. He can't talk to girls. All he talks about is like nerdy science stuff. Like he's just by far the nerdiest Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. In my opinion, Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker is by far the best Peter Parker because of a few factors. A, he's a nerd. B, he is by far he shows off his smarts the most. I'm not saying the other Peter Parkers aren't smart. But they don't really show it off often. With Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker, you see a lot. You see him doing equations. You see him. He's the one who helps the Lizard figure out his equation to make him the Lizard. He also says like the most quips and the most jokes. I'm not saying these jokes are always funny, but if you read the comic books, a lot of the times his jokes aren't funny, but he says them constantly during battle. And that's kind of part of what makes Peter Parker so iconic, is his really bad and also sometimes funny jokes, which kind of adds him there. And really quick, just talking about Tom Holland. Tom Holland is by far the hottest Spider-Man. Like, dear God, I've never been more in love with a man the same age as me. And I'm not even gay. But for this one, I am going to give it to Andrew Garfield. I didn't talk about Miles Morales for this one because he's technically not a Peter Parker. So, and he'll get more. We'll talk more about him in future categories. Now, for the writing of the movies, for the Tobey Maguire movies, the script of this movie is really just straight up goofy and overall really ridiculous. Like, the one-liners, the constant screaming from Mary Jane. It's a really goofy movie, and it doesn't feel like it flows all that well together. Don't get me wrong, the one-liners are really funny, but I don't think they're trying to be funny. I think they're just trying to, like, well, they are trying to be funny, but, like, they're really not, they really don't flow well with the movie. I think this writing's kind of messy and scuffed, but I do still enjoy it because it still does kind of work, because Tobey Maguire makes it work really well. Andrew Garfield. Dear God, whoever wrote this movie needs to go write for Yo Gabba Gabba instead. The decisions for this plot drives me insane. There are so many plot points for this movie that it makes holes look like filled ground, like Holes the movie. Like, whose idea was it to add the whole plot of his parents and make them so part of the story, and yet it's still so confusing on what they're doing and why they died? It is still so confusing. I don't get it. I hate it. It's garbage. I'm sorry. It's just really bad. Tom Holland Spider-Man. You can't deny Tom Holland kind of has the easy route with Marvel, and of course they have the cleanest and best writing. Everything feels so tightly woven together. There's no major plot points that are left like untold, where we don't feel like there's any plot holes in the movie. The way they made Tony Stark feel like Uncle Ben for this Peter Parker is really cool, and I really like it. I really like how the writers kind of made it feel really that their relationship grows a lot throughout this movie and Endgame and Infinity War, of course, too. Miles Morales. The writers details this comic book accuracy. I will say this over and over again. The comic book accuracy for both Miles Morales Spider-Verse and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man are so effing amazing. It's so cool. I love every second of it. It was just perfect. It felt like the comic book coming to life in more ways than just the animation, which I'll talk about later. But for this, I'm going to give it to Tom Holland. The writing was just so clean for it. You can't deny it's Marvel. You can't beat Marvel. I'm sorry. Now, leading female actresses. MJ and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, all she does is scream. Let's be honest. If you've watched these movies, which you probably have, all you hear or do half the time is scream. It's embarrassing. It's just boring. I don't know whose decision it was for her to just be the screamer and not have any actual lines. It's not good. I don't like it at all. It ruins the character for me. And also her only personality is she's an actress. Ooh, and she needs help from Spider-Man, which is a common theme with the female protagonist to Spider-Man. Now, Emma Stone's portrayal of Gwen Stacy, which was one of the only things about The Amazing Spider-Man that I liked, that they used Gwen Stacy instead of MJ as like the love interest for Peter Parker. I gotta say, it's kind of the same thing with Mary Jane in the 2002 version of Spider-Man, where they only have two personality traits. Their only two personality for Gwen Stacy is that she's smart and she constantly needs Spider-Man's help. That's it. It's really boring. I'm sorry. There's just no personality to her at all. I just don't get that feeling at all. Now, Zendaya'S portrayal of MJ. I know that in the first Spider-Man Homecoming, MJ /Zendaya is not the main female love interest. It's Gwen Stacy or whatever the hell the chick's name was in the first movie. But she's also really boring. They forget about her after one movie, and it moves on to the better love interest, in my fair opinion, of MJ. Zendaya played a really cool role and much different kind of MJ than we have ever really seen. This MJ was really nerdy, shy, much more feminist, as you saw, and she protested a lot. And then her other portrayals as the character. This version of the female protagonist has an actual personality, which the other two lack a lot. And just doesn't want to be saved by Spider-Man. She actually fights back in the second movie, as you saw with the mace. She's a badass. And lastly, talking about the other Gwen Stacy of the animated Spider-Verse movie, I don't really consider her a love interest yet. But she is the leading female actress all the time, and there is more than one leading female actress, so it's kind of hard to pick. But I will talk about her for a second. She's a badass. She's cool. She kicks butt. She's edgy. She's cool. That's kind of her personality. I don't find her that interesting. I just see her as filler character for the most part, honestly. So I am gonna give this one to Zendaya for the leading female actress. She just did such a good job. Now, for the best friend role, aka the Harry Osborn, I'm gonna call it for these movies. For the Spider-Man 2002, James Franco played Harry Osborn. His character portrayal as Harry was very consistent. Very consistently annoying. Oh my god, how much of a big douche can you actually be? He's supposed to be his best friend, and yet he tries to steal MJ from Peter throughout the entire series. And literally, he's just such an asshole to both MJ and Peter and everyone around him. And he acts like such a big baby. You see in the beginning of the second movie, when Doc Ock's experiment is going wrong, he's just sitting there stomping his feet no, this was not supposed to happen. No. I hate it. I don't know if this was the purpose of what James Franco was told to do and how he was doing it. If it was, bravo. You did a great job of making that character seem like such an asshole and not even close to being Peter's best friend. I didn't like this portrayal at all. It sucked. As for the Amazing Spider-Man's portrayal of Harry Osborn, I don't even know the actor's name. He wasn't even in the first movie. He just randomly appears in the second one, being oh, hey, there's my best friend who I didn't see at all in the first one, and it wasn't explained at all why he wasn't there. He's just off somewhere. His portrayal was just boring. He was quite literally just best friend. There was no actual relationship there. It was just really boring, and I hated it. Oh my god, the decisions these movies made were awful. The Amazing Spider-Man movies, if you want to watch them for the fun of it, go for it. But if you're literally trying to watch a really good movie, watch any of these other movies. Seriously. Now, lastly, but not leastly, Jacob Balatone, who played Ned. There was no Harry Osborn in the Spider-Man Homecoming / Far From Home movies. He's by far my favorite, even if they break away from the Harry Osborn trope and make a whole new best friend, which I actually think is pretty cool. Ned is the funniest one out of the three by far, and in the movie you can actually see a relationship between Ned and Peter, and they actually seem like they're best friends, unlike any of these other ones where you have a douchebag who's just totally mean to Peter, or just someone who's just there. It's just bad. Now, as for the villains, all these movies generally, I think, actually had pretty good villains. There was just some costume designs that were choices that were horribly made, with the Lizard in The Amazing Spider-Man. Who thought it was a good idea to put a human face on a lizard's body? Seriously, who made these decisions? Anywho, Kingpin from Spider-Verse was the only villain, though, that seemed to actually have a solid reason to be a villain. He was trying to get his family back, even though he kind of chased them away in the first place. But still, he was doing it for his family. And also for himself, too. That was also the main choice that he did. But I enjoyed his villain the most, so I'm going to give it to... I'm going to give it to Kingpin, Spider-Verse. Special effects. Oh my god, there's no competition for this. Spider-Man is by far the coolest movie out of them all. because it really felt like a comic book came alive. I talked about it earlier with the writing. But even with the animation, dude, oh my god, it looks so cool. It's just by far the coolest. It's just so amazing. I loved it. Now, as for... I'm going to make this kind of a category thing. Rapid fire. But as for, like, the memes of these movies that you got out of these movies, you got a lot of good memes out of all of these movies. Not really The Amazing Spider-Man, because nobody liked that movie. But by far the best memes, of course, you can't deny it, it's pizza time. Like, how can you beat pizza time? It's freaking pizza time! Moving on. Comic book accuracy. This was a close one because Spider-Verse is just so knitly tight to the comic books. It's just, and there's so many different comic books going on. It's so great. But I am giving it to Tobey Maguire because it's comic book accuracy to the classic Spider-Man comics. It's just that one step ahead of like Spider-Verse that gives it the upper edge because it's classic to the original comic. And finally, the last category I'm going to talk about is Rotten Tomatoes score. Spider-Verse by far had the highest Rotten Tomatoes score of 97%, which was amazing. The other ones were close to. Like, I know the average for like the Spider-Man from like 2002, like 2008 was like 91%, and then Spider-Man Far From Home and Spider-Man Homecoming both had like a roughly 90%. The only one that like lacked a lot was, of course, The Amazing Spider-Man, which had like a 70%, which is actually quite high in my opinion. It should at least have a 50 because dear God, Andrew Garfield carried that movie for real. He did. It was embarrassing how much he carried that movie. I feel so bad for him. So in the end, our final tally score for each of these movies, who won were Tobey Maguire had 3 points, Spider-Verse had 4, Andrew Garfield had 1 point, and Tom Holland had 3. So the official winner for my rankings out of all of these movies is Spider-Verse. It's also my favorite movie. It's just such a cool movie. You have so many different Spider-Man. The animation, the soundtrack, everything. It was just flawless in my opinion. Like, you really can't beat it. It was just really freaking good. So that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I love talking about this stuff, and I hope to keep doing it over the next couple weeks. Next week's video is probably going to be talking about horror movies and why the horror genre is dying. In my opinion, it is dying, and we're going to talk about that next week. But like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next week. Peace!